Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Deep Cut Dive. I got in the co-pilot's chair once again, Mr. Martin Popoff. Good morning, Martin. How are you today?
Yes, morning, Pete. Looking forward to this one. Very cool.
So, Rainbow Day. It's Rainbow Day today. So, another one of those bands that doesn't have an immense catalog and not necessarily a big hit band, but a group that's pretty well loved, and they have their signature songs, and those are not going to be the ones we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go into this not very lengthy catalog and try and pull out, each of us are going to pull out 5 nuggets from the catalog that the casual Rainbow fan, who probably only knows what Stone Cold, Kill the King, Man on a Silver Mountain,
Stargazer,
and maybe a couple others, right? So the usual suspects.
16th Century Green Sleeves,
Yeah, right, exactly. King of Dreams, right? Or no, King of Dreams is Deep Purple. Hold on, that's not what I'm thinking. What was that?
Street of Dreams.
Street of Dreams, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, exactly. From the Bent Out of Shape out. So I'm going to let Martin kick us all off with his first choice, and we'll ping pong back and forth till we get through our 5 choices.
All right, very cool. Well, I'm going to start off with something way back to the debut album. We've got that one up here, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, right? Not my favorite Rainbow album. I really like doing these deep cut dives where the catalog isn't too long, right? I mean, I just really like, being able to focus on these and find these hidden gems. But Self-Portrait I'm going to go with off of this album. I really like that there's not a lot of songs I dig a lot as the deep cuts on this album, because to me it really is only a couple songs deep. I mean, Man on the Silver Mountain and 16th Century Green Sleeves are definitely the classics. People like Catch the Rainbow, I suppose, as well. But Self-Portrait I really like. It's because it's not very Elf-like, so that's one of the things. I mean, this is the album where Richie absorbed the Elf band, right? Except for the guitarist. So we've got Ronnie in there. This is his big coming out party as a heavy metal guy. And I really like that this is a really Ronnie sort of lyric and vocal performance is pretty relaxed on it, but the lyric has got this, picture a Dorian Gray kind of feel to it. It's a little mystical and moody, and it goes along with Richie's guitar playing, songwriting essentially on it. So it's, like I say, it's not a very Elf-like one. It's definitely a very Rainbow-like one. And it's right in that neat middle space between being a ballad and being a rocker. So yeah, it's Self-Portrait. No one really ever talks about Self-Portrait, but I think it's in 3/4 time. It's a waltz, right?
Yeah.
I always call every 3/4 song a waltz, but of course it's not really a waltz. So, yeah, very cool one off the first album.
Well, I'll match you. That was my choice too. I absolutely, for a song that's like, right at the beginning of the album, it's definitely a kind of ignored tune on this album. I love the vocal on it. I like the guitar work. What I really like, and you kind of touched on a little bit, the kind of really gloomy lyrics to this song. Mm-hmm. It's got the Ronnie feel, but it's not as I don't know. It's just a little bit different for him. And I think it really works for the song and the pacing of the song. I kind of like the production of this album, although it's very kind of dry. It's definitely different than the follow-up album. And I agree with you. Some of the deeper cuts on this album are okay. They're nothing spectacular. I think this band kind of really took off with that second album and the third album. And this was, while still a very fine debut, I think it's a band still kind of figuring it out. And, it's a lot of the Elf-isms kind of carried over in this album. If I were to pick like another option here, probably Snake Charmer, I think, is a pretty cool tune as well. But yeah, Self-Portrait, great song.
Yeah, I was a little worried we were going to overlap because it is such a short catalog.
Yeah, might do it. We might do it again. You never know.
Yeah, and we are definitely. I think we're in agreement on the idea of what a deep cut dive really means, right?
Yeah.
So it's and yeah, these are the cool songs that the deep fans are going to like. So my number 2 is off of this album here, Long Live Cats and Dogs. There's Ritchie Blackmore down at the bottom. This is an ad I cut out of a Vancouver magazine like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I thought that was just hilarious.
That is pretty cool.
So yeah, Lady of the Lake. There's the actual correct album cover. My copy that I bought here, Canadian copy, back in 1978, right? So yeah, Lady of the Lake, I just think is one of the really cool rockers on this album. It's probably even my favorite song in the album, and it's obviously the big songs, I guess, are "Long Live Rock and Roll," "Kill the King," "Gates of Babylon," right? But I love this song because it's one of these that's. I hope you didn't pick this one. Did you pick this one? Good. So it's like a remake of the Wanton song off of Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti, right? It sounds very similar to that with this really cool note dance riff that just stops, and then there's space, and then there's drums. And then later on, Black Sabbath on Dehumanizer has a song called Master of Insanity, which is really, really similar to this as well. So yeah, just a really cool melody. Great chorus to it. It's short. It just gets to the point. And just a real, creepy Ronnie sort of lyric. That's one of these timeless lyrics of like a Renaissance or medieval story, essentially. But yeah, I just love that. I mean, when we first heard it, when this album first came out, it was just so amusing that, hey, this is the Wanton song all over again. So yeah.
That's a great tune. I love it. And I like the fact that you brought up the lyric, because I think that song, those lyrics are quintessential Ronnie going forward, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So it's got that whole mystical feel to a great song. So I love how we both bypassed Rising, because I looked at that and I'm like, there's just no deep cut on that. I mean, that's like one of the blueprints of metal right there, the whole album. So
yeah, and there's 6 songs on it. So if you were to pick a deep cut, it would have to be cuts 2, 3, or 4 off of the side with 4 songs on it. And I think everybody's more or less in agreement that those aren't super amazing great Rainbow songs, right? So it's a weird album. It's like a classic album, and it is amazing, and it's every single song on it's heavy. And it was the first album I remember getting where every single song was heavy. It was our first what we called a perfect album. But yeah, it's funny when people drill into it a little more, they realize that there's some things that are a little substandard on it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those albums where the great stuff is really, really great, and the other stuff is damn fine, but there's a gap between them, right?
Yeah.
But the great songs make it the great album that it is.
Yeah.
That's always been my opinion. I'm going to stick on Long Live Rock and Roll as well. I'm going to go with a song that, if I remember correctly, in your Rainbow book, you weren't too fond of, but I like it for its just its subtle metal leanings there. There you go, Sensitive to Light. The Shed.
Right.
With subtle in parentheses, street walking. I mean, it's just a bruising heavy metal romp. It's not the most inspired lyric from Ronnie ever, but you know what? I don't mind it. I just think, again, another one of those songs on this album that's just pretty damn heavy, and it's the back end of the album, and I've always dug it a lot. And nobody ever talks about this song. It's like, this is another one of those albums where you've got a handful of really notable tracks that everybody always goes back to. I mean, I was listening to Gates of Babylon the other day. What a freaking great song that is. It's like, if you didn't know it, it is, right? And, Kill the King, Long Live Rock and Roll, but so The Shed, so it's just got this barnstorming riff from Richie, the drums just pounding away cozy on the drums. And I don't know, it was always one of my favorites on this album, and I was always surprised it wasn't one of the more notable ones from the, Rainbow fans in general.
Beauty. Okay. So my third selection, I'm going to go with Lost in Hollywood from this one. I have to go with this because I literally call this all the time. I will argue blue in the face to anybody who dares to cross me. It's my actual favorite Rainbow song of all time on my favorite Rainbow album of all time. We've got the show called The Contrarians, where we have to pick what is your favorite album if it's a weird choice. And we have an episode where I argue for half an hour about how Down to Earth is just a great, unheralded, awesome Rainbow album. And this song, I think, gets overlooked because of its title. It's not a very Rainbow title, Lost in Hollywood. I think it's the greatest Cozy Powell performance of all time. He's not one of my favorite drummers in the world. But I love what he does on this song. It's just so groovy, and the snare work on it. It's got amazing Don Airey classical bits in it. I just love the melody, the speed. It's really fast. Graham Bonnet does a great job on it. It's just soaked in blue and purple regality and royalness. Despite the title, I think I just wish they would have maybe stuck a mystical lyric on this and a mystical title, and people would have thought it was one of the greatest Rainbow songs of all time. It's odd like that about titles, right? A lot of rock stars, eh? When you interview a lot of rock stars, they weirdly start writing the song from the title. They'll come up with a title first, and then that'll inspire the whole lyric. And
that's strange.
really
yeah.
odd, right? When they say that. But no, I just think everything about this is just gorgeous and heavy and classy beyond belief. I love the riff on it and all the little transitions to it. I think it's just a masterpiece. And, you know, they didn't have to go to 8 minutes like Light in the Black or Stargazer to do it. I just think it's the absolute perfect Rainbow song. And, you know, it's deep enough to pick. I mean, it is deep, period. I mean, because I guess All Night Long and Since You've Been Gone are probably the big ones off of this album, right? So, yeah, favorite Rainbow song of all time. And definitely I had to go with it, Lost in Hollywood.
Great pick. I've often argued that Lost in Hollywood is kind of like the long-lost sibling of Stargazer. And I knew you were going to pick it, which is why I didn't, because I know how much you love this song. I went to this album as well because I had to. I think this is a very underrated album. One of Graham Bonnet's finest performances, I think. And just a really strong lineup here that I wish would have kind of gone on a little bit longer, but that's Rainbow for you, right? So I'm going to go with Danger Zone. All right. Cool. Good, confident Graham Bonnet vocal. Love the chorus on this song. It's got, you know, good amount of heavy riffs. It's got those kind of proggy keyboard and guitar exchanges. I mean, you know, Blackmoore and Don Airey work very, very well together. You know, great drumming from Cozy. I just think you can't go wrong with any song on this album. And, you know, as Martin said, there's the two main songs on here that everybody knows. But, man, Danger Zone, Lost in Hollywood, and Eyes of the World.
Yeah, I know.
Eyes of the World is great too, right? So, yeah, killer album.
It drives me nuts too when people call this a poppy album. For some reason, they just keep always calling Down to Earth a poppy Rainbow album, right? And absolutely, hands down, without argument, it's way less poppy than all three of the Joe Lynn Turners. But they're saying that because of Since You've Been Gone and basically the verse of All Night Long. And then there's one ballad on it, Making Love, right? Which is actually a really good one, right? Yeah. But the rest of it is totally heavy Rainbow. So I just never understood that when it's called a poppy album.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so my next choice, I'm going to go with Eyes of Fire from this one, Straight Between the Eyes. You know, this one I'm not feeling super strong about. I mean, I basically looked at this record and Difficult to Cure, and I wanted to find something from them. I mean, I almost went with Bring on the Night Dream Chaser. I almost went with No Release from Difficult to Cure. Almost in my heart, I probably should have gone with No Release. But Eyes of Fire, I love that intro sequence with the snaky guitars coming in and the sort of flamenco bass riff that you get from Roger. And then there's the shift in mood, you know, the clouds come in and, you know, the music gets foreboding and really Egyptian sounding on it. And then it even changes again when it comes to the verse. And the verse is one of these verses that's sort of in the middle between their, you know, trying to be the commercial Foreigner type band and still being mystical. So the mystical still matches the other parts of it. And it is one of these, you know, I think Joe Lynn Turner, when he described it to me, it's one of these, it might be the one where he's talking about meeting some girl in the bar and her eyes were just like mystical, you know, burning through him. She had the eyes of fire. And he was actually in his kind of a cult phase and stuff at that point as well. But, yeah, so it's one of these mystical woman sort of songs. You know, last song on the album, 6 minutes, 39 seconds. So really long one. So yeah, almost 7 minutes, which is odd. You don't expect that from this era. But yeah, good heavy one. Last song on Straight Between the Eyes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Straight Between the Eyes. I always have been. That was probably the album, at least here in the States anyway, which, you know, really got the band kind of really noticed. I mean, they had a cult following, but I think that kind of like broke them here for a little bit. And
Stone Cold, right? The big hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did that, you know, that big tour with the Scorpions and, you know, headline Madison Square Garden, all that kind of stuff. I was initially going to go and pick something from Straight Between the Eyes because there are a good amount of deep cuts on that album as well as this album. I decided to go with Difficult to Cure and the song Freedom Fighter.
Yeah.
which, good chugging riff. I mean, it's a pretty heavy song for this album. And, you go back and listen to these albums, and specifically this one. Joel and Turner's vocals are damn good on this album. And yeah, they've got this kind of like foreigner thing going on, which this is what Richie wanted to do at the time. They had the right singer for it. But I love Rondinelli's drums on this tune. It's got the memorable chorus. It's got a fiery guitar solo from Blackmoore. I like Roger Glover's production on this album. I think it's got like a warm feel to it, but I love that chugging riff. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it's just a well-crafted song, and it's really memorable. And I think this is a period in the band's career where they were just pumping out one memorable rocker after another and doing it pretty damn good. Was it different from the the Dio era and the Bonnet era? Yep, but different isn't always bad, right?
Yeah. So cool. All right. So for my last one, I am going to go with "Desperate Heart" from this album.
Love it.
Now, one thing I definitely feel about these three records is that this is the only one to me that hangs together where all the songs fit and there feels like there's a concept and a philosophy behind it. I often call this a concept album of the Joe Lynn Turner era. I find all the arrangements really kind of unique, but then used across a lot of these songs. So basically, tracks like "Stranded," "Can't Let You Go," "Desperate Heart," and "Street of Dreams" all feel like very, very similar songs to me. So I always felt that both "Straight Between the Eyes" and "Difficult to Cure" seem like albums where they're just checking off all the boxes. Here's the blues one, here's the Egypto one, here's the OTT one, as we used to call it, right? Here's the ballad or instrumental. So it just feels like those two records feel kind of fragmented to me, that they just are unsure of their direction. And this is the first one where I really feel like there's a unique rainbow sound to this band for the first time in the Joe Lynn Turner era. So I love the fact that it's not very heavy. It's kind of pomp rock. Remember that term we talked about before, right? It's got a neat two sets of keyboard lines on it. Love the bass line, the pre-chorus, again, how it's not very heavy. The chorus, there's 4 on the floor drumming, bass drum on 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. Great solo, one of these very Ritchie guitar solos where it sounds like he's strangling the guitar. I often in that strangling the guitar idea, I often compare Richie to Zakk Wylde and Slash. They both have that feel where it feels like they're bending the neck, right? Or like they're literally like trying to throttle the life out of the guitar, right? So Richie does that sometimes, and he definitely does it on this solo. So yeah, I mean there are other deep cuts on this, but I just really like the "Desperate Heart" is of a set with those 3 other songs on this album.
That's my favorite song on the album, actually. I like
Cool.
"Desperate Heart" quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about that album. I think at the time when it came out, I liked it a lot. I didn't think it was quite heavy enough overall.
Yeah, definitely not. No, it's not.
Yeah, but good songwriting on it, and memorable songs, and that's the important thing. But and I like your little explanation of Blackmore's guitar solo there, and he actually, as someone who's followed him for a long time, and especially from the Purple days, he was doing a lot of that sort of thing in Rainbow, specifically in the Joe Lynn Turner era. Like he was relying more on kind of little flashy things, whereas he was playing more serious, well thought out solos. Like he was doing a lot more whammy bar stuff and kind of like little, all sorts of little weird things on the neck on those last 3 albums, and especially live. If you got to see him live, those last couple of tours, he was doing a lot of that stuff. And whether I don't know why, whether because it was the '80s and guys were doing flashier stuff, or maybe Richie was just getting a little lazy or whatever. I don't know, but definitely if you listen to his guitar solos from the Purple days and the latter part of the Rainbow era, there's a bit of a difference there. Like he definitely started changing some things up. Still great though. Still great. I love him, but. All right, so my last choice, I'm trying to represent everything here. I'm going to go with the Stranger in the Soul album.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, quite frankly, it's an album full of deep cuts, right? Because 80% of Rainbow fans probably never even heard this, right? But I decided to go with Cold Hearted Woman on here, which I think is a pretty good tune. Doogie White does a fine job on this album. Some people love and some people don't. This is one of, if I remember correctly, this was his first big recording, right, with anybody, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's done a lot since then. But, you know, it's kind of a cool tune because it's part of it reminds me, you know, Richie was trying to recapture the early days of Rainbow magic. And I think this song reminds me a little bit of stuff off that first album. It's kind of got that kind of like heavy boogie rock type of thing going on. But there's also like this little, I don't know, I was listening to it yesterday and I was like, I detect like a little bit of like that bluesy metal, like Badlands type of thing, which is not surprising because it's not long after the short Badlands era. So I think it's a good tune. There's a lot of strong songs on here. I don't think this is a top shelf Rainbow album by any means, but it holds up pretty well. So.
Yeah, I went through that too. I thought, oh, can I find something here? And the production of that album really bothers me. It's really sort of finicky and finessey. It's kind of high strung, and I just felt like the album was one of these where he's really trying to write like Rainbow, like second guessing himself too much. You know how we talked about how, you know, I love obviously Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, but at that point, they became a different band that wasn't just about fearless art making. They became a band that kind of second guessed themselves a little bit. So, and same with, I guess, Priest when you get into the 80s. So this album always felt a little bit like that for me. So I couldn't really pick anything from it. I figured there were enough Joe Lynn Turner stuff to pick something.
Yeah, and I picked something because I figure probably there's enough people who don't know anything from this album. But I agree with that. I think this album was a little forced. I mean, you know, you look at the album cover here and it just kind of tells you everything you need to know. And I like that Richie kind of seemed to go out of his way to try and come up with there's a lot of riffs on this album. I don't know how many of them are great, but I think it's almost, to me, it's like he was really trying to recapture the old magic just to do it and prove that he could. And, you know, and as we saw shortly thereafter, he went with his true love, which was the, you know, more acoustic, folky, medieval type of stuff with Blackmore's Night. And I don't know about, I mean, while we're talking about Rainbow, what is your impression of the recent reformation, so to speak, of Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow?
Yeah, it's baffling. It's almost like that record, right? So that record that we've just been talking about, you know, he's got to rename the band back to the original name of the band on the first album. And then later on, so it's a live situation. And I believe, you know, I'm thinking back to the writing of the very end of that book because all that stuff's in there. But I believe the live album that they put out from this was like their first performance ever or second. So it's like not that great. So everybody kind of got down on the lead singer. He's from Chile, right?
Ronnie Romero. Yeah,
Ronnie,
Romero.
yes.
Yeah.
So you know, so he's like forever on this record where it's not great, but then he got better later. And then they do like they do one new song and then they cover Black Sheep of the Family again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the most bizarre career track, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I would have loved to have said, you know, now that he's got the name Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow again, I would have loved to say, you know, cut out all the nonsense, give us a full album, go ahead and call it Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow again, and give us a link to the Stranger in Us All album. You know, I have a feeling it would have probably been fairly similar to that record. But yeah, it's you know, everybody's kind of down on him for the weirdness of just the career choices all along the way.
Yeah,
right?
and then like what, almost half the set is Deep Purple songs, which
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings though, because I love this band and I love him so much, but I was pretty disappointed with that the live stuff that the Blu-ray and the CD. First of all, Richie just seems like he's going through the motions and just doing it to do it. And I get the impression that his heart's not into it. And I thought Ronnie Romero did a fine job. You know, I mean, he's singing the old Dio stuff and singing the Joe Lynn Turner stuff and singing the Gillan stuff. He's a fine singer. As he's a little overexposed right now. He's appearing everywhere. But then like half the rest of the band is like, you know, you got Jens Johansson, and then the rest of the guys are from Blackmore's Night. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Rainbow to me.
And didn't he have, I'm trying to think, doesn't he have a little bit of that English as a second language accent to what he's
he does, yeah.
Yeah, like, so the accent is on the wrong syllable sometimes. And, you know, so you're distracted by that. It's like, you know, you're Rainbow. You could have any singer in the world. Why do you go for it? Why do you cause trouble for yourself, kind of thing, right? But no, I mean, he's come into the role and he's singing great now. Like he's got
a great voice. Yeah.
So there's no problem there. But I just you know, and you know, all along there are other Rainbow singers available if you want to really do Rainbow and tie it to the past. So there's a lot of choices he could have made that he didn't make.
I heard
But,
Joe
you
was
know,
pretty upset about this. I mean, Joe
yeah,
wanted to get it
exactly.
big
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
On the same token, you know, like I don't know if you heard the new Vandenberg album, but Ronnie Romero sings on that too, and he does a
yeah.
good job. But then they like the last song on the album is like a remake of Burning Heart, and it's with you know, with him singing, and it's just like, did you really need to do that? And then you hear the accent because you're used to the original you know, class. I don't know. It's kind of strange.
You know me, like, I mean, literally for many of these bands, the lead singer is 50% to 60% of the equation. And I know Adrian would get annoyed for me saying this, but I guess the original singer's name is Bert Herring, I think.
I think so.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So literally, you know, Vandenberg is the name of the band, and he's the guitarist, and he's one of my favorite guitarists. I just adore those 3 Vandenberg albums. But, you know, without that original singer, you're just not Vandenberg. I mean, it's just, it has to be Bert. You know, it has to be him singing. He's just got just so much personality and charm on those 3 records that without him, you know, the enthusiasm just drops like a rock.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been telling people about that album. It's like if you're expecting it to sound like those 3 albums from the 80s, it doesn't. It doesn't sound anything like them at all, because you got a different singer. There's all these years in between, and like I've told people, it's like if you like kind of like those first couple of Dio albums mixed with a little like 80s Whitesnake, that's what the Vandenberg album sounds like. It's quite good for what it is, but it doesn't sound like those 3 albums.
And the Moon Kings album was awesome. I mean,
that stuff's good too. Yeah,
he's just great. He's just absolutely great. He's basically like a Michael Schenker, right? He's this guy that has this perfect balance between the Gothic Teutonic Euro and the hair metal, and he just combines them together, and that's what Michael Schenker does so well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look at that. We started off talking about Rainbow, and now we've gone off on a Vandenberg tangent.
Got a bonus.
Right? Hey, maybe we should do. You know, have I done it? I don't think I've done it. You want to do a rank in the Vandenberg catalog? It's only 3.
Sure, like each pick 10 songs, that thing, yeah.
Or either that, or we ranked. We could do it. We could all.
Oh yeah, or ranking the catalog, exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's rank the catalog. Let's do that.
Okay, we can do that. So there you go, folks. We on the fly. We just came up with another episode for the near future. So anyway, Martin, what do you got to plug? Do you want to plug the book? Do you have any copies left of that Rainbow book?
Nothing much. I mean, yeah, the Rainbow book. Yeah, I'll just mention this again because I'm very, very proud of this. I mean, this came out through Metal Blade Records years and years ago as a smaller 8.5 by 5.5. Not a lot of pictures. I don't know if we had any, but now it's it's over 300 pages. It's vastly updated and rewritten, and a lot of pictures. You know, 3 photo sections in color. So I'm probably more proud of this as just one of the band biographies that I've done, simply because it's the second time around, and I think I did it a lot better. And it's a big book. I think it's a definitive Rainbow book now. It's got to be, you know.
I would agree on that. Yep.
Yeah. So I actually still have some of these left, and it's also coming out now through Weimar as well. So there's my edition from my site that I still have some left. And then once those are gone, there are the Weimar editions as well. So
cool. All right. So everybody hop on over to martinpopoff.com and pick yourself up a copy. If you don't have one by now, it's a great read. I got one on my shelf over there. So very good. All right. So that wraps up this Rainbow Deep Cut Dive. So for all of you Rainbow fans, pick some 5 deep cuts from their catalog and offer them up as suggestions to your fellow viewers who maybe don't know a hell of a lot about Rainbow, right? Great band, some great albums here, a lot of good songs, and hopefully everybody learned a little something today, or figured out some cool tunes they can go investigate. So this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Thanks to Martin for joining us today. We are going to be back together again over the next couple of weeks. Deep Cut Dive with AC/DC, Deep Cut Dive with Budgie, and as we just announced, a Vandenberg show coming up soon too. So they have 3 shows that Martin will be joining me for over the next couple of weeks. So don't miss them, all right? So for Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.